Hello and welcome to Reader's History of Doctor Strange, where I, AJ the Comic Archivist, read through the histories of any given characters and then talk about it in depth. Originally, this run of Doctor Strange was released in November of 2016 under the A Comic A Day channel that I was running at the time. But rather than just uploading the videos in a Redux, I might as well start cannibalizing the scripts and make them proper reader histories. With all that housekeeping out of the way, let's dive right into the sordid history of Doctor Strange. Dr. Stephen Strange was created in 1963 for Strange Tales number 110 by the legendary Steve Ditko, though Stan Lee did work on the script a little. Fun fact, originally Doctor Strange was going to be called Mr. Strange, but Lee felt that it was too similar to the previously debuting Mr. Fantastic, so they slapped Doctor on instead. With such a longevity for the character, it's also surprising to note that the 5-page filler that introduced Strange was actually a rush job. Granted, that's the good thing about split books like Strange Tales, where they could do a quickie story just to see how things would go, and it can catch on. However, the rushed-out Master of Black Magic was actually a hit. How big of a hit? Well, the Illustrated History of Superhero Comics of the Silver Age by Mike Benton actually puts it very well. College students, minds freshly opened by psychedelic experiences and Eastern mysticism, read Ditko and Lee's Doctor Strange stories with the belief of a recent Hare Krishna convert. Meaning was everywhere, and readers analyzed the Doctor Strange stories for their relationship with Egyptian myths, Sumerian gods, and Jungian archetypes. Or if you want that summed up quicker, Roy Thomas said, "People who read Doctor Strange thought that people at Marvel must be heads." Heads being slang for stoners at the time. That's actually fairly accurate, because Doctor Strange came about before that 60s-70s trend that I like to call the Asian invasion, which I do attribute to, at least in some way, to this comic and tropes involved. While I will eventually get to a reader's history of the original Strange Tales, let's fast forward to issue 169, where Strange Tales got rebranded as a solo Doctor Strange comic, and that's where we begin this binge. So, cue the credits and let's get to it. We start with Doctor Strange number 169, The Coming of Doctor Strange. Oh damn, I must have gotten the Tracy Scott's version. No, I'm just a child, and I absolutely love how grandiose the titles for these issues are, so I will probably be bringing them up more. Roy Thomas is the writer, and will be for a very long time, with Dan Atkins as artist. We begin in the Himalayas, at the secluded retreat of the Ancient One, where Dr. Stephen Strange prepares to rest, for tomorrow is another day of training and mastering the mystic arts. Yes, the first thing to remember is that decompressed storytelling was not a thing, so these may be some of my wordiest videos. Yet as he lays there, sleep will not come, for his mind is fixed on the Ancient One. Every day his master grows weaker, and soon will come the day that Dr. Stephen Strange will stand alone against the mystic phantasmagoria of the world. So naturally, Strange does what any self-respecting man with a pencil mustache does at a time like this. He lights a cigarette and muses about the irony of his situation. That's right, now it's time for good old origin story flashback. Another life ago, it seemed, Dr. Strange was a brilliant surgeon, haughty and self-centered, but a master of his practice. Woods gorge. Until one night, he was speeding down the road next to a gorge. The roads were wet, and inevitably he veered off the cliff. He wakes from his accident in a hospital, but the unimaginable has happened to him. The nerve endings on his hands are totally shot, and now he can't even hold a scalpel. Unable to be a surgeon, his life spirals down until he's a penniless drifter. If only America still had the infrastructure that becoming a drifter was a legitimate job choice. During his life in the gutter at a sleazy dockside bar, he overhears two sailors talking about a man called the Ancient One, able to cure anything, from scurvy on up. Naturally, with no other hope, Strange throws the last of his possessions into Hawk and buys a one-way ticket to the mystical East. Through some fairly decent detective work, piecing together legends and rumors to get a general location, because that wouldn't be hard for a bum, he started to just wander through the Himalayan mountains until a snowstorm hits. Barely able to see through the whiteout, the Temple of the Ancient One reveals itself to him. He goes in, and honestly, you just gotta love how much the Ancient One puts on the stage act of being mysterious. Yet Strange, being the rational man of science he is, bum rushes the Ancient One, no doubt ready to tickle the secrets of healing out of him. The Ancient One levitates him up to prove that he is in fact mystical, but because he also loves being attacked by strange men, he allows Strange to stay as his guest. Then we get introduced to probably one of Strange's most consistent villains, Baron Mordo. Of course, we don't know he's evil yet, but, well, look at him. He is also cold towards our dear doctor, But again, Steven exactly hasn't been a winning character up to this point. That night, though, Strange can't sleep, so naturally he takes a stroll around, stumbling upon Mordo invoking the dread Dormammu to kill the Ancient One. Yet Strange fails his hide and shadows check, so Mordo begins attacking him with magic. First, it's with a body-stopping headache, and then a literal iron clasp around his mouth so he can't scream. As Mordo tries to channel Dormammu to create the vapors of Althar, Strange races to the Ancient One. The Ancient One does that voodoo he do so well and saves the day. On that day, Strange knew that magic was real, and he then became the student of the Ancient One. With that memory of how he came to be where he is now played out for the audience, the doubt and self-pity he's feeling in the present lifts off the Master of Mystic Arts. Just in time, too, as the Ancient One begins to cry out in pain, and Dr. Strange goes a-runnin'. If this was one of the Then and Now issues, I'd be bringing up how the recap for this has to be so long merely by the fact that this is a wordy as sin comic that relies more on the narration from Dr. Strange to tell the story, as was the style at the time, just like wearing onions on your belt. However, I want to say that since this was a rebrand of Strange Tales, now solely focusing on Dr. Strange, it really is helpful to have a retelling of his origin story to get new readers up to speed, and more importantly, allow me to tell the origin to make this a perfect start to the solo reader. That being said, there's still like 50 plus stories before this that generally do get overlooked. I don't want to say that's a big problem because throughout these issues coming up, they're referenced and information is filled in, so it's not really that big of a problem. Another thing that I will bring up before anyone else does is that Dr. Strange in this is definitely not based off of Vincent Price's looks-wise as he would be later on. Rather, Dana Adkins draws him to be more Clark Gable-like. I assume it's to draw more attention to his young hotshot surgeon full of himself attitude, and Gable certainly was a popular choice for that kind of swagger at the time. But after that great hopping on point origin, the next issue reintroduces Strange's very first foe, and my personal favorite, issue 170 with another great title, To Dream, Perchance to Die. Starts up right where the last left off, with Dr. Strange running down the halls to the chamber of the Ancient One after he heard him crying out. Yet the Ancient One is asleep in bed, sleeping like the dead. While Strange wonders aloud about what he heard, Amir, the servant of the Ancient One, basically he's his Wong, appears from nowhere. Amir also heard the Ancient One's mental cry, but also heard the name of what was menacing his master. Nightmare, the evil that stalks the byways of the dream world. Naturally, Strange has big magic energy, so he summons his magic cloak and begins trying to make contact with the Ancient One's mind. But even the strongest incantations aren't reaching him. So Strange does have to go with Plan B, actually going into the Ancient One's mind. Yet as his astral form is about to leave his body, right when he is at his most vulnerable, a spell of unbelievable power pulls Strange's very essence into the timeless ether. Then Nightmare pulls away his guise as a mirror and monologues over the mindless body of Stephen Strange. Even just as a spirit in the void, there is a reason Strange is a master of magic. He breaks out of the odd spheres floating in the timeless void, as spheres are often known to do, and Nightmare enters the dreamscape, much stronger there to face the much weaker Strange. Strange is barely able to break Nightmare's first attack spell, but Nightmare grows overconfident and the Eye of Agamotto opens, blasting Nightmare with the blinding light of truth incarnate. Nightmare then runs away into the waking world, just like a 12-year-old that logs out instead of losing a match online. While Strange can't chase after, he does have one ace up his sleeve. Strange mentally controls his magic cloak of levitation to trap and ensnare Nightmare before he can do any harm. Then Nightmare runs away again, because he's not actually a good one-on-one villain, hopping into the Ancient One's dreams. Strange is now able to hop back into his physical form. Before he can chase after Nightmare, though, the Ancient One wakes up. The Ancient One then lays it all out. He actually allowed Nightmare to enter the real world solely because Strange had been having so many doubts, so a win against a powerful foe like Nightmare would make him feel better. I kinda feel like that's a pretty extreme idea, but hey, it did kinda work out, and Strange does have his groove back for future adventures. Right now, at least. This issue reintroduces Nightmare in a big way, but the fact that he was basically allowed to be a git just so Dr. Strange would get out of his pity party is kinda weak. It is what it is, and a good real entrance into how these stories would lay out. Compared to later stories in his existence, where Strange would create magical weapons or shoot bolts of colors at the baddies, these stories really place the tone of what hooked the readers in. The surreal and trippy visuals with dialogue and narration telling the actual story going on. With that, you can also see how awkward the fight scenes have aged. Basically, it's almost like two 10-year-olds one-upping each other in a card game. I do this. I know you do that, so I do this. Yeah, but I escaped because I got a magic cape. Fine, I lay my trap card and end my turn. It's not exactly a bad thing, it's just awkward, because it does allow for Adkins and previous and future artists to be able to experiment with the art, giving it a very unique feel. This issue also sets up the two iconic artifacts of the property, the Eye of Agamotto and the Cloak of Levitation. Now that the official setup for the series is done, though, with one issue of Origin and another one showcasing how the stories will go, time to get some meaty bits with issue 171, In the Shadows of Death, with Tom Palmer taking over for Dan Adkins on art. But first, a message from our sponsor. Doctor Strange descends through Greenwich Village side street and enters the magically sealed Sanctum Sanctorum, his home in the States and the repository of his greatest artifacts and most dangerous knowledge. His faithful servant Wong greets him as he enters, wondering why he was away for so long and why his brow is so heavy. No, I'm not going to get into why Wong as a character culturally hasn't aged well, mainly because the context of the character is still quite awesome, with him being more of like an Asian Alfred mixed with a mystic Kato rather than just a manservant. Anyways, before Strange left the Ancient One, he was told of an incantation that he needed to do in front of the Orb of Agamotto so that he can see Clea once again. I'll get into who Clea is in a little bit, just know that he has the hots for her, and she's banished to a realm she cannot escape from. Strange goes and does the incantation, which summons the Herald of Satanish, to show him the realm where those under the spell of everlasting banishment resides. However, when Strange demands to be taken to her, the Herald vanishes in a puff of fire and brimstone, daring to not do more than what his master told him to do. This is actually a pretty good setup for events that will come in a couple issues. Strange now knows that Clea is alive, however, so all is not lost. Yet, the Ancient One also told him that the only way to get Clea back is with another woman. While not happy about it, Strange knows exactly who he's gonna go get. Using the orb, he finds Victoria Bentley. I know, not a name most people know. She was introduced fairly early in Strange's life in Strange Tales number 114, when Strange saved her dead dad from Baron Mordo, and she became a recurring character, even once being forced into being the bride of an alien, though Strange erased her memory of most of that. Strange, though, isn't thinking about anything other than what he must do for Clea, so he does his first massive teleportation spell to drag Victoria thousands of miles in the blink of an eye. While she is a bit dazed, Strange tells her who Clea is, how she used to be the queen and aided Strange against the dread Dormammu and Dormammu's sister, Umar. To save her, the Ancient One had to vanish her into the ether along with the scroll to bring her back. Safe in oblivion, as it were. That's generally just a recap of Strange Tales number 155, though. While she doesn't have any magic, Victoria does agree to go with Strange, because she's in love with Stephen Strange. Strange then opens the cosmic door, and they enter, hand in hand. The realm of the unknown here is oddly old hat for Doctor Strange fans. They really do focus on the spectacle of it, with Victoria voicing newcomers to the property here. However, Strange's single-minded focus on Clea leads to carelessness with Vicky, who gets pulled into a magical evil bubble. Seriously, geometry seems to be Doctor Strange's biggest foe of all time. He tries to save her, but it just absorbs every spell he uses, so he allows himself to be absorbed too. Because of course. Sucked into a cosmos of unknown scope, he senses the ever-watchful eyes of that realm's master staring. Throwing up his super cool darkness cocoon around him to hide him from view, he continues searching for Victoria. Eventually he does find her, but she is so frightened that she won't move. So he casts the Shield of the Sacred Seraphim to protect her until he returns. As he continues alone in his quest, one of the weird orbs split open and a living symbol of Doctor Strange's death attacks. Nothing Strange can do even slows the attacker down. Yet before his death can land a killing blow, yeah, that's a sentence I had to say, a ghastly aura consumed Death, turning him into dust. While Strange wonders what just happened, he is unknowingly being shrunk down and then grasped by the dread hand of Dormammu. Let's just go ahead and hop straight into 172 I Dormammu, with Gene Colan taking on the art. We hop right into the fight between Dormammu and Doctor Strange, which surprisingly isn't that one-sided as the last issue suggested. However, Dormammu seems to just be far more interested in gloating and talking than just straight-up ganking Strange. Seriously, he puts him in a holding trance just so he can start story time. Dormammu tells us of the tale of his soul defeat at the hands of eternity, which is from Strange Tales number 146, and generally just outlining everything that's happened to him since then. The quick version is that Dormammu used the spell to do something to eternity, which nearly sucks Strange into the void as well, except the Ancient One summoned Strange back. So only Dormammu was actually sucked into the realm of the unknown, and since then he's become the master of some local abominations. Clea eventually randomly shows up and he captured her. That's his story, and it's pretty unimpressive, all things considered. With everyone trapped, Dormammu is ready to take his revenge on the Ancient One, leaving an evil touch-and-you-die kind of guardian to watch over Clea, Victoria, and Strange as he leaves. While Strange cannot use his own magic, he still does have the Cloak of Levitation and the Eye of Agamotto to help. The eye cracks through the prison and also shoots a beam of light that is not light at the evil guardian. It falls to the ground as its very essence was drained, because you see, dear watcher, the beast was made of Dr. Strange's stolen magics, because why not? Strange then shatters Clea and Victoria's prison back to the Sanctum Sanctorum. Strange then starts getting ready to go after the dread Dormammu alone. Elsewhere, Dormammu is arguing with his sister, Umar, as he opens the doorway of dimensions so that his minions may invade the Earth. Yet before they can go through the portal, Strange appears, throwing down the gauntlet of one-on-one combat with Dormy. Before we jump to the next issue, I want to say that Gene Colan's art here is probably the turning point to where the art became less about illustrating the narrative and actually acted to showcase the magic outside the narration more. His art does keep the aesthetic of the previous artist, but instead of staying static, a moment like the Eye of Agamotto shooting all the baddies actually feels sequential, if that makes any sense. Now then, it's time for the epic clash in 173, While the World Awaits. Dr. Strange is still standing between Dormy and the portal to Earth, yet Dormammu is ready to just sick his grotesque legion onto the Doctor instead of dueling. However, Umar goads Dormammu into the duel. Yes, it is for her own purposes, but hey, that's what makes Dormammu accept. Dormy's first attack is the Maelstrom of Madness. Strange uses a psychic shield to protect himself, but he is still thrown around for a bit before conjuring the Flames of the Faltine, which disperses the Maelstrom. Yet Dormammu apparently had overextended his power with that Maelstrom, needing a moment to recover. One of his minions sees this and actually voices doubt. So naturally, by evil leader rules, Dormy disintegrates his underling. Meanwhile, Clea and Victoria are plummeting through the trippy world between worlds as Victoria laments that Strange never loved her, but she will always love him. Yeah, gripping, truly. At the Sanctum Sanctorum, a portal opens, and Wong greets Clea and Victoria, though he does show some concern that Strange booted them back to Earth while he was still in danger. All of that is cast aside when there's a knock at the front door. Dr. Charles Benton is adamant that he must talk to Strange, so he shoves past Wong and is going to wait right there until Stephen gets back. Brief history: Benton is a colleague of Strange when he was a surgeon, and not a, as Benton puts it, gaudily dressed charlatan. He's there to offer Strange a job as a surgical consultant. You know, the logical extension of, if you can't do, at least help others. Back in the realm of the unknown, though, Strange gets bound by magic chains, and Dormy talks and talks and talks. While he just won't shut up, Umar is plotting out how to thwart her brother, but then she begins to hear an inner voice. It tells her that she should free Strange to use him for her revenge. No, this isn't Umar's conscience or the child she ate for dinner, it's Clea and Victoria using the Orb of Agamotto. However, it doesn't stop there, though, as Clea and Victoria place their hands on the orb to give Umar the power to stop her brother. She frees Strange, who then tackles Dormy straight through the portal to Earth. While this does technically free Dormammu, his legions are trapped on the other side. Strange uses a spell to solidify the clouds so Dormy can't reach Earth fully, though, because apparently touching the Earth is technically how that works. Being in the physical realm, though, Strange has a power boost and Dormy is a bit nerfed. Dr. Strange begins to thoroughly clean Dormammu's clock with some pretty fierce spells, like one that turns the very air molecules around them into steel pellets and launches them bullet fast. Fairly certain if this issue was made later on, past the early decade of the CCA, there would have been some heavy gore here. But Dormy recovers with enough strength to vanish into the sky. Strange does get the victory, though, but he is weary and exhausted, so he summons the Orb of Agamotto to take him home. As soon as he poofs in, however, Benton is on him, asking him to become a consultant, but Strange of course turns down the offer. Benton then berates his colleague, saying that Strange was greedy then and he's greedy now and has never been useful to anyone ever. While Strange literally just got done proving to no one in particular that he is very useful for Earth, the crippling loneliness hits him as he stands alone in his sanctuary to end the issue. I actually truly love the concept that Dr. Strange is almost an inferiority complex that stems from him losing what he felt his mission in life was. His mission as the Sorcerer Supreme has been filled with self-doubt and secrecy to really show the stark contrast to his life as the Surgeon Supreme. Being a surgeon came so easily to him that he had little doubt, and the world knew that he was a master of his trade. I originally legitimately never thought about this until his past life came back to basically mock him here for his current lifestyle. And it fleshes out the character so much, and a lot of the early characterizations just click perfectly into place for me because of that. Yes, that did come as a shock because I mainly knew the character from the early to mid-80s. While I want to say that the Dormammu arc over the last 3 or so issues was the point of the story, it's because of this self-doubt that I think that the point is actually a longer story for the character, needing for him to find himself, or have it click to him that being the Sorcerer Supreme is just as important as the Surgeon Supreme, even if it doesn't come with the oohs and ahs. It began with him having his self-doubt about taking the mantle in the first issue we covered, and while his ego did get bolstered, be it battling Nightmare or kicking Dormammu's butt, it came crashing right back down here. Now, in a couple of days, we'll continue looking at the early days of Strange in a part 2. Make sure you subscribe and ring the little bell to be able to get notifications for all the wonderful videos I post out sporadically, like the Joker reading the Raven, or the Then and Now of the X-Men, which may be up right now. If you agree, disagree, or just want to add your 2 cents on the Doctor Strange comics, or Doctor Strange as a character, leave a comment below. While you're down there, if there's a comic you'd like to see on Reader's History, Then or Now, or whatever, speak your piece. Who knows, you might be able to get it into my head, so I do it when I don't have a patron or direct donation one to do. Speaking of, all that is in the description, as well as the direction, donation, pricing, just to make life easier on everyone. As always, I'm the Comic Archivist, and stay golden, Inklings.